All right, it's 7:10. We'll call the meeting to order. This is Tuesday, April 26, 2016, North Andover Board of Health. The meeting is now called to order, and our first item is the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could all stand, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So in the interest of the people before us tonight, we will put off the minutes until later. We have no old business before us except what may come up under communications later on. So we'll move right into our new business, and first we have a matter of 32 Olympic Lane. So Jack, if you could come forward.
Right. For the record, my name is Jack Sullivan. I'm owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group, and I'm here tonight requesting a local upgrade approval for a property at 32 Olympic Lane. The owner has a failed septic system. I did soil testing on the property, and I came up with a full septic design that Mill River Consulting has reviewed, and they're basically in agreement with my design work pending the outcome of the meeting tonight. And what I'm looking to do is I'm requesting a 1-foot separation to the groundwater table. This is a 4-bedroom house. There was a 42-minute per inch percolation rate for the soils to the rear of the site. And so we're required to have a 4-foot separation to groundwater, and I'm requesting a 3-foot separation to groundwater. The reason for this request is originally I did a design with a septic tank to a pump chamber, and I pumped up to the field in the back. The homeowner went out and got price quotes for this project, and when you look at the plan, you can see access to the rear yard's very, very difficult. There's patios and a pool and pool mechanicals and fence lines, and the contractors who bid on the project said it would be extremely difficult to get to the rear of the property, specifically where the pump chamber was going to be situated, because there's a lot of pool mechanicals, underground piping. People didn't know where pipes ran to the pool and to the mechanicals. Prices were coming in anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 for this system. So the owner came back to me, asked what I could do to try to help out with the cost, and what I found out is if I did get the 1-foot reduction to groundwater, it would eliminate the need for the pump system, which would immediately save them $7,000 to $8,000. The soil testing that I did at this site, which Mill River came out and oversaw the testing, we did find distinct groundwater soil modeling in the soil, so we did have a good high groundwater table to work off of. So in this case, the reduction of the 1 foot is really an economical decision. This puts the price tag for this system around $35,000 instead of the mid-40s. And that is why I'm here with you tonight.
Jack, what failed in the system?
I'm not really sure. I think the soils are marginal out here. The 42-minute per inch perk rate, very marginal. It's an original system, so I'm not sure. I think it was really just the age of the system. This house was built in the 80s. You know, septic systems don't last forever. So after 30 years, I think it just kind of ran its design life. I'm not sure what the original perk rate was when this subdivision was designed. I doubt it was 42 minutes an inch. So it was probably a combination of age of the system and might have been something with the percolation rate. Maybe the original system was, undersized somewhat. But I think more so than anything, it was just the design life of the system.
But did the existing septic tank, did it pump to the leachate field?
There was no pump to it. The original system was a septic.
Flow.
It was gravity flow. I didn't do the Title V septic inspection. She went. What's going on is they're putting their house on the market to sell it. She had to have a Title V inspection done. It failed, the Title V. then I got called. I don't do Title V inspections since I do design work. I feel it's a conflict of interest. So all I was called was she needed an upgraded septic system. I came in, did the soil testing, did the design work. But the original system was a 1,000-gallon septic tank, and there's 3 leaching pits.
Ah, okay.
Okay?
Got it.
So I'm not sure if there was like a backup into the D box or why it failed the Title V inspection, but it was deemed a failure and a new system was required.
Okay.
So usually when we get this request for the 4-foot versus 3, it's due to aesthetics and a mound and so on in the front yard. Now, this is, so you said this is, so they don't have to have a pump in order to run the pipes downhill, basically.
That's right. I always look at it, if I can avoid a pump, I like to avoid a pump, okay? I know in this case I need relief of a foot to do that, but I always look at it as it's just something else that can go wrong with the system. She was concerned with any sort of mound, but it would be in the rear yard. It's not aesthetics like I can see in the front yard. People don't like the mound. They don't like the candy cane vent, in their front yard. In this case, with the 1-foot reduction, there'd be about a 1-foot grade change in the rear yard. That's not too bad. If I don't get the 1-foot reduction, then the grade would have to be brought up 2 feet in the rear from the existing grade. But it would be behind the pool. It wouldn't really be a visual impact to the property. To be fair, this is really just in economics. We were shocked when the prices were coming in $40,000 to $50,000, and she got quotes from 4 different contractors in town. And I actually, at that point, I called Michelle and said, I have to do something here. And I actually looked into alternative type systems like a microfast system, something like that. But I didn't really need that in this case. With the 1-foot reduction, I can get everything to flow by gravity. It still works. And really, it's just economics. I've never had a system that priced so high. When she was telling me $40,000 to $50,000, I actually called some of the contractors who bid on it, and the whole thing was trying to get to the rear yard to place the tanks.
Yeah, in 1996, I had a whole new septic system, including the tank and the pump tank, and the septic tank, that is, in the pump tank, and so forth. It cost $19,000 and everything.
Right.
And the leachate field is far into the property, so.
The other systems you were talking about, ones that require maintenance, why didn't you go with one of those?
I didn't go with those.
The microfilter, is it?
Yeah, because with those alternative systems, there's an annual cost with them, okay? So like for the microfast system, they have to come out at least once a year. I think sometimes they even want to come out twice a year. It can be $600 to $800 a year for them to come out and inspect the system annually. And that's a cost when you're selling your house. You have to tell a potential buyer, it's going to cost you $800 a year to run this system. And a lot of people are like, what? A lot of people don't know anything about septic. We do, because you're the Board of Health, I'm an engineer. But most people buying it, they just hear, what? Another $800 on top of what I'm spending and everything else. I don't think we're sacrificing any level of protection. Title V allows the 1-foot reduction. If I needed more than a 1-foot reduction, if I needed a 2-foot reduction, then I would have went with an alternative system. I would have used a microfast or a BioClear or some alternative system. In this case, I didn't see it.
Excuse me, this leachate field here, it's as close as 21.5 feet to the existing abutting property?
Correct. So the Title V requires a minimum 10 feet. So I'm 21. I'm much over I'm double the minimum.
Yeah, I'd forgotten what that was.
Yeah.
10 feet, okay.
Yeah.
We haven't seen many fields that have been put in near a pool. It shows here 20-foot minimum. That's our regulation, is that correct? That's in North Andover? Or that's the state? The state says that also? Okay.
20 feet from the field, 10 feet from the tank.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions from over here or thoughts, or?
No,
We
it's
generally
pretty-
haven't had major objections to the 4-foot to 3-foot on aesthetics, and we've reduced mounds, so.
Okay. I think in this case, with the cost benefit analysis of the system this size, it's definitely warranted in this situation. I've never seen a system cost that much, but I talked to Tracy earlier this week,
Yeah.
and she was looking at the old betterment loan program that they used to have back in the late 90s, and we don't have that anymore. So she said her system was going to cost $50,000, and I was like, excuse me? And then I looked at the file, and she told me what's going on, and I knew that you guys are coming before us. So I do have to agree with the reduction to groundwater in this particular case.
I don't object, just sort of for me to understand. A leaching pit system couldn't be reused because, I mean, it's not really a current standard. Does that mean we don't generally see that today?
My guess is the leaching pits sit in the groundwater table.
Okay.
Typically, like the old leaching pits were 6 to 8 feet deep, and I think my groundwater table was down, 4.5 feet. So the effective leaching ability of these pits is non-effective in the water table, and just where they sit in the water table, I think they'd be a failure anyways. I don't know at the time if someone botched the water table or what, but there was no way to try to reuse these. A newly upgraded system was required.
But so then, sort of to go further on that then, so if the leaching pit in that area, if the water table is at 4 feet, but then here where the leaching field, the new infiltration field is going to be, the water table is much lower than that then, if we're getting a 3-foot separation?
Right. I found modeling at 48 inches and 52 inches, and I actually dug another test pit. If you look at my plan right to the westerly side of the rear brick patio, and I hit ledge at 12 inches down. My guess is the water table runs pretty consistently, no matter what your topography is here. It basically runs 4 feet below whatever grade you're at.
So then if we look at page 2, just so we understand, so you show a 3-foot, so there's the groundwater elevation is 95.7, and there's 3 feet up to that. So then you show a box there, but that's really the trenches of the field, I'm sorry, the pipes.
Yeah.
And then a little bit less than a foot of soil over that, is that correct?
That's right. So
Okay.
these are infiltrator units. They're arched systems, so the 3-foot separations to the bottom of the infiltrator unit. Then the infiltrator units are 8 inches high, and then there's at least a foot of cover on top of this, on top of the infiltrators.
So that's a 1.75 feet, and then 3 feet, but so there may be a little bit of mounding just to get that minimum. This is the 12-foot minimum, that's a requirement also for cover over the trenches, correct?
Correct. So if you look, it's the existing grade where the system is I'm going to use rough numbers, is roughly elevation 100. There's a 100-foot contour running through the system. My finished grade over the system is at 101.3, so we're raising the grade by about 15 inches, but you're correct, there's 12 inches, there's a minimum 12 inches of cover over these
So
chambers.
in order to get this minimum 12-foot, you'll have to add a little over the top.
Yeah, I'll have to add 15 inches of material over the existing grade.
So then, just again, kind of thinking out loud, how does that get assured that add-on of the 12-inch grade stays there? Say if you build the system, not you, but somebody builds the system, and this grade is added on, what holds it there if between the time it's put in and soil and everything grows in, there's a heavy rain? Like, what keeps that 12 inches?
Typically, the Board of Health requires me to do a final grading as-built. So before the contractor backfills, I go out, I locate all the inverts of the pipes, I get the locations of all the system components. I give an interim plan showing prior to backfill. I send it to Michelle or Brian saying, okay, everything looks good on my end, you know, and then they come out, do their inspections, make sure the D-bot, you know, make sure everything looks right. It gets backfilled, and then I'm required to come out and do a final grading as built. Because in this case, it's not a big deal, but on some sites that are sloping, there might be a breakout issue on one side, which is more critical, and I have to make sure the contractors actually met my grading plan to ensure there's not an issue with breakout. But,
Right.
I mean, is there a guarantee 3 years from now they don't strip a foot of material off the site? No, but at the time it's completed and I certify that the grades are met, I provide it to the Board of Health, I wouldn't see why anyone would go and do that, but there's no guarantee against that.
We go out and do a final inspection after that, when it's loaned and seeded, to make sure that it's actually seeded and it's going to actually take. So that's our very last inspection, is the final grade inspection. Make sure the contours are right.
And
Make sure
the seating is down.
Make sure the seating is down. And that was like you said, what's to prevent them from 3 years later going and digging off the top foot? Nothing.
Yeah.
But if they do that, they're going to destroy their system and have to spend.
Yeah, they'll be back.
Well, so,
$40,000 again.
I'm not accusing anybody at this site of doing this, but I guess
No,
I'm
no,
kind of thinking out loud, where does that, if that does happen or washes off the edges, does that create, you say the system fails because?
In this particular case, there's only a 2 foot, 15 inch.
inches.
So there's not going to be a big, huge mound with steep slopes. There's always slope requirements around your system as well.
Right.
So there's not going to be a lot of runoff, not going to be a lot of erosion. If there is erosion, it'll be minor, and I'm sure the homeowner will fix whatever minor erosion does occur. If there are torrential rains, well, it's just
Right.
loamed and the seed hasn't taken it. But
Okay.
for something at this particular spot and this grade, I don't see erosion being a big problem.
On higher systems, we often put in either, a plastic barrier inside or, a wall. So if it's a very high system, if you have a high water table, you'll build it up over that water table.
Right.
And you'll have, a wall, some type of a brick wall.
A
around it
wall or the various.
that protects it from
various,
eroding down
architectural
or
things,
breaking
yeah.
out or that type of thing.
You ever use sod in case if you're at a certain angle that prevent runoff, or you just seed it?
Well, there's a certain requirements on the edge of your system.
Yeah.
You have to, whatever the top height of your system is, you have to come out 15 feet level. Then you can drop off at a 3-to-1 slope. At a 3-to-1 slope, if you loom and seed it, you can mow it, Sod's expensive. On system repairs, I haven't really seen people use sod before, to be fair. Maybe if it was in a front yard and they were gonna try to sell it and they were worried about reseeding, if it would come in time for an open house, they might sod it.
Oh, I was talking about like on top of it, just to prevent runoff. That's just like what
Yeah,
Tom was mentioning.
Tom was saying.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
One heavy rain, I did my lawn, and one heavy rain, I had a like 8-inch trench because
Right.
part of my yard goes down, and the only way to have prevented that would have been to cover it somehow.
What happens a lot of time with the septic installations is the septic installers bid on the septic installation only. They won't take responsibility for the finished landscaping because they don't want the call to come back and, oh, my grass didn't grow in quite right. That they're not landscapers, right? So they put in everything. A lot of times a landscaping company will then follow up, meet the grades, but then they become responsible. So if the grass doesn't grow in right, the homeowner can call the landscaping company and deal with them because the septic guy doesn't want to deal with landscaping. I really haven't heard of in the past about erosion problems. I know if there's a gully washer and you get a rut like you're talking about, Larry, it has to be fixed and the landscape company would come back out and do so.
I think standard practice is usually just do a quick little hydro seed,
Yeah.
and then it's done. And that stuff usually does secure the soil enough for the grass to actually start to root and alleviate any of the ruts and small channels being formed on the edges.
Thank you.
Further discussion? I'd like to make a motion. 32 Olympic Lane, to approve the request for a septic system upgrade to allow a 3-foot vertical separation between the bottom of the infiltrator units in the seasonal high groundwater table. Second?
Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time. See you, Joe.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Brian. Good to see you again.
Thanks,
too.
Jack. Thank you. Sorry.
You were up in the field too.
See, it was cold out and raining. I'm a mess.
All right, next item of new business is 100 Raleigh Tavern Lane. Ben Osgood Jr. is here.
Good evening. You all have my copy of my letter that I,
Yeah, we have,
okay. I have some floor plans too. I think they were in my letter. I have some larger copies if anybody wants to look at them. These are a little larger.
File with the things in it. Oh,
The homeowners here as well, and they put together a very
They have
nice
all of that.
presentation board. So good evening, my name is Ben Osgood Jr. I'm a civil engineer, and I'm here with Mr. Wondolowski, he's the homeowner. The reason we're here is to request that he be allowed to put on a deed restriction on his property so that he can increase the number of rooms in his home. Just to give you a little history, I think it was back maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I designed a septic system for the home, for the person he purchased the home from. It's on Raleigh Tavern Lane. It's right adjacent to the big pond or wetland area that's on Raleigh Tavern Lane on the left as you head down the what we call Raleigh Tavern North when I was growing up. It required a fast system, quite a few variances. It was, I think, 17 feet from the edge of the wetlands. There may have been, obviously there was some groundwater reduction, but the fast system covered that. So he has a pretreatment system. He maintains the system. It's kind of off to the side of the house, and it is a rather large system. There is no opportunity to expand the system, which would be required if he wants to expand the number of bedrooms in his home. So currently, he actually moved in and he took the top floor, converted it from 4 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms. So upstairs he has 3 bedrooms. On the first floor, he has I believe it's a family room, dining room, kitchen, and a formal living room. So there are 4 rooms, so that's 7. And down in the basement, he'd like to finish off the basement. Currently, there's a living space and some unfinished space, and he'd like to convert that to a small office area, a small living space, and a 4th bedroom. So what that would do, bring him up to 10 rooms. Under Title V, the way you calculate bedrooms is you take the total number of rooms, divide it by 2, round down, so we have 5 bedrooms. Obviously, he can't support 5 bedrooms. He's got a 4-bedroom system. So under Title V, Section 15.002, it also allows you to record a deed restriction that allows you to have more rooms in the home that is allowed in the system, but it puts everybody on notice that it's only a 4-bedroom home and can only be used as a 4-bedroom home. So the purpose of their addition, they obviously would like to add back a 4th bedroom, but Mr. Wondolowski works from home. He'd like to have an office area and another small living space in the basement. They don't plan on moving more people in. It's the same family they have. They're going to use the house. It's just to give them more room and allow them to work from home, you know, and have the space that I always say kind of our changing lifestyle demands. People want more areas, you know, home offices, and so on. So that's why we're here. We're asking that he be allowed to put on the deed restriction, which the standard Title V deed restriction would be used, and it would be recorded at the registry before he's allowed to have a permit granted for the construction. So.
Did you say there were initially 4 bedrooms?
There were.
On the 2nd floor, and that was reworked to 3, is that?
Correct. He took one bedroom, he took two bedrooms and made a large master with more of a master closet bath area, which in these old homes, the bathrooms and closets were kind of small. I say old, 70s, but they're not like they build now with these huge master closets and so on. So.
Is it worth mentioning the office isn't enclosed, it's just a 5-foot?
Yeah, it is.
Wall?
It is in the basement. It's still going to be one large living area almost, but it's divided a little bit. There's an office space and a living space. We've called it 2 rooms. It's actually one big open room, but it's going to be used kind of as 2 spaces. So
Separated by full walls and doors?
No, it's a half wall. There's a half wall. So I guess the question came up is, and I think, Michelle, dealing with the homeowner, thought, well, that could be used as 2 different living spaces very easily because it was separated. I don't know. I could argue that point and say that I think the regulations say it's a room that offers privacy, can be considered a bedroom. It's like one big living space. It's kind of like an eat-in kitchen, but.
That's what you're talking about here, Ben, this, or
Correct.
This into this here?
No, it's
Well, actually, that's
right-hand side.
on the right-hand side right here, this little wall that sticks in, that's a half wall. So this is actually one big open space.
At the beginning, it was a wall, and then it was supposed to go to a new wall. And it's at a 5-foot wall now.
Right. It's a 60-inch wall, which isn't a half wall, that's a almost wall.
2/3 wall. And that's why we're here. We didn't want to come in and start arguing about the half wall, and I said,
Right.
they feel it's important to separate the space a little bit and offer privacy from the office and the living area. So we're here asking to have the deed restriction put on.
So when we're looking at the proposed basement plan, so where will the working office space be then?
It would be over in this,
In what's shown
on
as
the
the
right
living?
side, what's shown as the living. This would be a small sitting area, living area off of the bedroom, and this would be the bedroom here.
So this is one, we would consider this as one bedroom here even, or what is this
To
here?
me, I would count that as 2 rooms.
Well, it's
But that's
actually,
just me.
To me, it looks like, yeah, go ahead.
I would look at this as probably 4 rooms. If you took out the 5-foot wall and made it a 2.5-foot wall, maybe 1 room, and then you have a total of 3. So you're getting kind of up there in number of rooms.
right.
Which I don't know if that is something that I would be comfortable with in this type of situation. You took out 1 room upstairs.
Yep.
Now you're adding 3 or 4. So you're kind of getting a little bit aggressive in the proposal. And then with the deed restriction, I'm not sure if I'm really comfortable with that either. I don't know if that's the
So
intent
maximum he
of.
can go to is 9 rooms, correct?
Correct.
So
It's allowed, a deed restriction is allowed.
For
Under the-
new construction?
Yes, yep, for, if you want to change your house and add a bedroom, or add a room, let's say somebody came in and they had a 4-bedroom home and they wanted to add, a extra family room or an office in their home, that would be the same type of situation. This happens to be the basement, he wants to do it in the basement. Now, to your point regarding this area, if you considered, a room has to have a window, so if it doesn't have a window, you can't consider it a habitable room. So, and it's not whether or not,
That's the definition of a bedroom, maybe?
it specifically says in Title V, it needs to have a window. And by the building code, you can't have a room without a window that has no access, no fire access. So you
Okay.
can't, so that's considered a storage area. And that's under the building code as well. So it is open, but really, it's not in order to make that any kind of area that's habitable, it has to have this window. If you close it off, it's not an extra, it can't be considered an extra room. So,
So you're saying if you close it off, it wouldn't be a room?
no,
It would be
You'd have to call it storage.
like a closet.
It's a closet, right, right.
It's a pretty big-
And we've actually had that,
It's a big closet.
It's got 4 walls and a door, but it's not a room.
it's not a habitable room.
Okay.
That you can habitate. Now,
Okay.
By code.
by code.
Right.
Right. So,
So,
we've had this before. I distinctly remember, we had this issue on Berry Street. There's a photographer out there, I can't remember his name. Ed Perry. He wanted a storage room, and Sandy Starr wouldn't let him have it unless he did a deed restriction. And I went out, and he had a window at each end of the storage room. I said, "What are the windows for?" He says, "To give it light." I said, "Take the windows off the plan. It doesn't count as a room." Came in, and everybody said, "Yeah, you're right. It doesn't count as a room. It's not a habitable room. It's a big, huge closet." And that's what it is. To be habitable, it has to have a closet. Now, I guess you could say, well, people are going to use it, but it doesn't meet the definition, and we don't go making people do things to regulate what might happen in the future that isn't lawful.
well, that's what the deed restriction's for, actually, is to...
Yeah.
There is a bathroom going in too, yeah.
What's the deed restriction citation for Title 5? You said 15.02, that's definitions.
15.02 definitions of bedrooms, and it says,
Oh, okay, so that's not, all right, I'm looking for the deed restriction.
and then it says you can have a deed restriction at the end of that section.
Okay,
So I didn't bring that
So-
section with me, I'm sorry.
okay, that's fine.
But it does say that
I
it
think-
defines a bedroom, it defines how you count the number of rooms divided by 2, and then it says that the Board of Health is allowed to allow more rooms with a deed restriction.
Okay.
And Title V has a deed restriction in there. Or DEP has one.
And Michelle, we've looked at this before, and I think we've done deed restrictions before, but when I asked a bathroom's going in, and I don't know how that would affect number of rooms divided by 2. Does the bathroom, now you're anticipating increased?
Bathrooms don't count, it's the number
It's
of...
the total, what the system was made for, which was a 4-bedroom, but after construction. So this is after construction.
Oh, fine.
So he has a maximum in his home, he has 7 rooms right now. He can only go to 9 rooms total. Anything over that, he can't. He either has to upgrade his system, or, I think that's it. So he has to upgrade his system. So.
Or have a deed
Okay.
restriction.
Possibly, yeah. So,
I
but
think
in
we
this
might need to
case,
review this a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think definitely needs further review at this point. I haven't had a chance to really get into it, I just started a few days ago.
I understand.
So I'd like to look at this more in depth, but my initial impression is deed restrictions are used for last case scenario, worst case scenario, maximum feasible compliance with Title V. If you have a site in a system that doesn't fit, then you use a deed restriction to limit it to 2-bedroom system for 220 gallons per day, because you can't make it big enough to meet the 330. That's my initial impression on deed restriction. Not for building out your space and adding in as many rooms as you can, and then filing a deed restriction just so you meet the code. I don't think that's the intent of a deed restriction. So I think we should look at it and we sit down and talk a little bit more, maybe come up with maybe some alternative plans.
I think, I know they've tried to do that, and I understand that personnel have changed. So, and I just kind of got into this on a separate matter and then started
Okay.
speaking about this and said, well,
Okay.
I know they were in flux with the people coming in, and so, but I'm going to respectfully disagree.
I knew you would. That's perfectly fine.
In today's society, our lifestyles are, we don't have 4 bedrooms, 4 rooms, living room, kitchen, dining room, family room. It's just, and you look at the houses that go up, and there's some very large houses. People have offices, they have a study, they may have a library, they may have, a sitting area off of the bedroom that could be considered a room. The spaces, people like to have a little more space now than, the standard cookie cutter colonial that, we built for so many years. And don't mean to insult anybody if you live in one of those, because I do.
I live in one of those.
I do. But, you know, I did the same thing. I moved into my house, and I had 4 bedrooms, and you have 4 tiny bedrooms. You go in and you make a big master with a huge closet. You know, fantastic. Makes my girlfriend really happy. Place for her clothes. And that's what they did, and now they want to use their basement to make up for some of that space. And I think we can look more in, you know, I don't have a problem, you know, speaking more about it, but it definitely says that a room has to have a window to be habitable, and we can talk to Jerry about that, and you know, it can be there, but it's definitely a storage room, and again, you know, you can't go
Finished?
It's not actually a storage room, it was a gym. So the first design, the first thing that I saw
And you're gonna
was
have
that it was a gym.
Heat, carpet, or tile walls?
no heat in this area in the front over here.
I know,
mean,
I think the walls were going to be still exposed foundation,
Yeah.
so I don't know if there was plans to run.
Yeah, my understanding was there was no.
They were all finished.
There were, I mean,
And I mean, that's when you're getting into finished walls, floors, heat,
Yeah.
then
Yep.
it's starting to feel like a room. It doesn't have a window.
Yep.
But, I mean, I think we should sit down,
I
talk
guess.
about the deed restriction a little bit more. I don't think it's appropriate to get a deed restriction for new construction, and I consider finishing out areas in your house new construction. It's not increasing the footprint, but you're adding living space.
I have an idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a motion that you discuss it with Tom and let him review it to his satisfaction. But if all of you agree, rather than come back a month from now, I'm going to put in the motion that if it's okay with Tom, and it's run by our chairman, that if it's agreed upon, then he can have, Dr. Trowbridge can have final say rather than you come back a month from now. Before I do that motion, does that sound reasonable, or?
Sure. I was going to sort of add, I've heard a little conversation back and forth also about this wall over here, and if we use that same definition you put forward, and that's a 5-foot wall, that looks to me like 2 rooms there, then. So then that goes up to 10, and then.
It actually goes to 11.
So I think we'll defer this to the experts, and we can go with that.
Okay, so
Parameter.
we'll make the motion that our director, Brian, review it with Ben Osgood, and they'll come to whatever terms they come to, but you don't have to come back next month. We'll let our chairman make the final decision, whatever you to agree upon.
Okay.
I
and if-
second.
So when we do a deed restriction, do you as the director sign off? I know that's a legal document,
I
but
would
how
have
do
that. I
we
would have-
stamp on it? That's your
I would have the
signature goes to
legal-
that
Yeah, I would have
and
the
gets
legal
filed
document.
with, yeah.
Then it gets filed with the registry of deeds and attached to the deed of the property.
Right.
But that's not a stamp by us completely. That's, I mean, we approve
No.
it and then you sign off on that.
Yeah,
And that's what
yeah.
gets filed.
Yeah, I
Do-
would have town council look at that, make sure it's okay, and then if it's okay with the homeowners and their attorneys who will draft it, then we send it off and they file it at the registry of deeds, record it, give us book and page, and put it on the file.
Do I have to put that in the motion about a deed restriction, or that's automatic if it's once?
No, it's part of our
That'll be-
standard
It's part of it,
standard
okay.
procedure, so.
So Joe seconded it.
So then, we've always brought this up, but I think your homeowner understands what a deed restriction means. Okay. That's just kind of vetting of what we have to do.
Okay.
So, all right. Okay.
Yeah, he's here. I shouldn't answer for him.
Well, you're sitting there.
Now, so there's no misunderstanding, what is the element of communication going forward? You going to contact them? You're going to contact?
Yeah, we'll sit down and we'll meet together with the regulations at town offices, and we can talk to Jerry about, you know, what's the
Right.
definition in the building code of a room.
And if it's not going to be a room and it's unfinished, then I'm okay with it not being a room.
You're talking
but,
about Jerry
I mean,
Brown?
Yes.
That's all
Yep.
something we can sit down and figure out in a regular meeting, not in a public meeting, take it all night. And I didn't get a chance to talk to Ben about this earlier, so.
Right. Yeah, I think we just start last week, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been here for
Well, that's why to
days.
make it easier on you, so you don't have to come back or wait 30 days.
Oh, we appreciate that.
This way-
Appreciate it, yeah.
whatever you agree on can just automatically happen once our chairman approves it.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion with seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Okay, so let's then move on to the approval of minutes. Larry, you have the March minutes?
I don't, no.
Okay,
They're not
so-
ready, and Lisa wasn't able to do it, so we'll have to hold off.
Okay, so we'll put that off
Yeah.
to the next month. Again, we don't really have any formal old business before us. Then we'll move on to communications, and we're a bit remiss in this.
I do have some old business.
Well...
Oh,
okay,
formal.
Go ahead with that, yeah. It would be appropriate for that to be under old business.
Should we wait? I'll wait till the end.
No, go ahead now.
Okay. What I want to do is, we're going to get a letter out, and we want to bring to a conclusion from the previous board meeting for the Allens. So I was talking to Brian, and there were some things in the final letter. It's not an order letter, it's just a final letter concluding the board meeting that we had last month. Brian, you had some points that you wanted to go into the letter.
Yeah, I think if you guys want to send a letter out, we just need to clarify what you guys want to put in the letter from the last board meeting. Michelle's been leading this project all the way, but a final letter confirming what you guys discussed your last board meeting in regard to the order letter that was sent out, I believe.
45 Elm Street,
Yep, 45 Elm Street, and that was sent out last...
10th. The order letter was
Yeah.
November or
November.
October, the end of October?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically clarifying that, okay, you guys had the board meeting, you did not grant any permits or allowances for her to issue any rental property or use any property as a rental property or a rooming house. She can't rent it until it comes into compliance, and that hasn't happened yet, so we need to do another inspection. She needs to bring the property into compliance. We need to move forward with the order letter from October and the board meeting last month, March 23rd.
I think there are two major points to be brought home. One is the status of the order letter, that it's still
Still outstanding.
in effect, and
Yes.
there's still points to be satisfied in that in terms of inspection. And two is her ability to rent or have somebody living there, and sort of the definition of, we talked last time about the status of renting and habitating. I think those are the two big things, right?
Yeah. And also, at some point, it comes to a conclusion. We don't have, I would imagine, you don't have an open order letter for years. I mean, she was denied last time. Do you have certain wording that you wanted to put in there, Brian?
Yeah, and me and Michelle can
And
sit down
Michelle, you guys
go
can work
through
it
that.
out.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
But what I want to do just to formalize it is just make a motion that we get the final letter out on the Allen case and be done with it, put it to rest. So that's my motion.
So,
Second. Discussion?
so would you like to have a closing date on it? So what we can do is we can write a letter stating that, here's the criteria, these are the violations that are still outstanding from the original order letter, and then a 30-day turnaround if you'd like to re-rent. If you choose not to re-rent, then we can put that stipulation in there, but if you choose not to have it re-inspected, in other words, therefore you won't be able to rent again.
But the order letter itself and the ability to rent still is in effect
It is,
really for the long term. If she chooses not to rent and leaves the situation as it is, it will be that way in a month, in 6 months, in a year. I guess if we say in a month we conclude it, where does that leave the situation? Then that requires you to have to go out and do a re-inspection, right? I think...
Well, we have an open order letter right now on the
Yeah.
property, so that does need to be closed out.
so she's out of compliance right now. So right now, she had a date that she had to come into compliance. She's out of compliance. The deadlines have not been met.
Mhm.
So we just need to maybe extend it out to give her, because she came here, give her another alternative as to when it should be closed out. if she so chooses to do that, then we'll go back out for a reinspection. But if she chooses not to re-rent it, then it's a closed matter.
But my point is, if we come to the end of that deadline, whenever it is, say
Yeah.
June, it closes out, but then she comes back in September and says, I want to rent, the status then is you have to start from the proverbial ground zero, as if we're starting all over again, right? You kind of erase the old inspection, go back and restart? Is that what I'm understanding? Because if you close out the inspection from
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
November,
Yes.
How do you
So
end this one
usually
situation?
what happens is we have a prompt from a tenant to come in, and that's how this happened. So the prompt came in that we went in. If she wanted to re-rent, I would think that she'd have to go back to the order letter.
Yeah.
And the problem with that sometimes is that within that time frame, more things can happen in the home. So we can go back in and we'll be doing a re-inspection, and there could be other criterias that we see that have not been met. So you start off with writing another order letter. You could start off, I should say.
right,
So you could.
Yeah.
So
But-
then the closing out would mean that whatever was done, like you say, in November is, for lack of a better term, we'll say null and void, but if you choose to rent again in the future, you have to be
We'd have to go back in,
re-inspected
yes.
vis-à-vis to that question, because
Yes.
things may change. She may
Yep.
fix things in the interim, or things may become problems that weren't there then, so.
Correct.
If she was going to re-rent, we would go back out. She
Would have to.
renting Under a boarding house, we would go back out and inspect because of historic violations. And the last time that we were in there were violations, and we haven't been back in to re-inspect since.
So my point would be that should be clear, that
Yeah.
whatever was, if she chooses not to rent in whatever time we choose, then that's fine, she can stay as she is. But if she chooses to act as a boarding house in the future, we have to do a full reinspection from point A.
And we can add that into the
Yeah.
next letter that we send out. saying-
Because I think that needs to be clear,
It's
based
right.
on some of the things
It
we've
is
heard.
important, yeah.
I guess you could put in there that failure to act within 30 days, we'll assume that you're no longer interested in pursuing this matter, and we'll consider the case closed. I mean, what else can you, I mean, come up with better wording is fine, but I mean, there has to be a final, after 30 days, usually after 30 days of the failed act, we either go to housing court or we fine them. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
mystery to this.
Right.
But if they fail to act and do anything, we can't keep it open.
Correct. We need to do something. This has to go somewhere.
Correct.
We have to steer the ship in one direction and follow it through, get it taken care of.
Failure to call for reinspection or act upon the order letter.
Yep.
Within 30 days. We can either, what do we say? I mean, I don't want to put it in their, words in their mouth to close the
We'll
case.
pull it out of the
because,
code.
Yeah,
We'll pull it out of the
pull rest
code that she's
code.
no longer
again,
allowed to
the next
rent.
step is
Right.
housing court or fine them.
Yeah.
So either
Correct.
way.
I don't want to take them to housing court. If there's no tenants in there, nobody's complaining, then it's not going to go very far in housing court.
Yeah.
There's no point in that. yeah.
There's no point.
Correct. So I want to work with her and get this thing taken care of.
Okay.
If that's the case, if they want to move forward with this. But we need to get something out there. We need to start this process.
Okay.
Since the last board meeting, they came here, they talked to you, you pleaded their case, we need to follow up, we need to move that forward.
Did you have an opportunity to view the last board meeting?
I did not, sorry. I meant-
Okay. That's all right. A lot going on.
What is frustrating about this, and I did say at the last board meeting, is that really there's not that much that has to be done. I mean, it's not a daunting thing. It's not insurmountable.
Right.
And being new to the job, perhaps you can get closure, because we haven't had closure to
I'll
date.
do my best.
Yeah, we need to put it to rest.
Yeah,
It's
I
really
completely
over
agree
with.
with you.
Yeah, it's really over with.
Mhm.
So if,
I might suggest, to be fair, from what we heard, a little bit longer than a 30-day window would, I grant that
Okay.
that's sort of different perspectives for different people, but I think to give them a 45 or 60-day window would give them more allowance to get to the point of doing what needs to be done. That would be my only suggestion, but
fine,
I can do
it
that.
doesn't matter. It's been 30 days since last meeting anyway, so I mean, what's the difference?
well, we kind of left it that status quo last time,
Yeah,
but she said
yeah.
she didn't, at least she represented before, she didn't plan to rent it, so she probably, I'm sure, hasn't done anything, so we can,
Well, she called and she said she wanted to rent it. So after our meeting, she
Well-
called into the office and said she did want to rent it, so
so then,
we really need to...
addressing the issues that were brought to her attention?
She was told that if she brings it into compliance, that she'll be able to rent, and we'll come back out for an inspection. So, and I'm not sure of all the specifics that were
so
discussed.
then all the more reason
I
for the
wasn't
letter
there.
to put a timeline on this, so,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we need to make this motion, or you kind of handle that at your end?
Let's make it formal,
Okay.
please.
You make the motion, please.
I made it. I'll make it again. Make a motion that we send a letter summarizing the previous board meeting with the Allens regarding their ability to follow the order letter and rent. And so Brian and Michelle will get that out as soon as possible.
Second again.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Unanimous.
very good. Okay, now I'll say I've probably been a little bit remiss to introduce Brian LaGrasse as our new again Director of Public Health. He worked in the department and in town some years ago, made a move to the nearby municipality of Methuen, has come back home now. So
Yes.
welcome back to North Andover as the Department of Public Health.
Thank you, Dr. Travers. I really appreciate that. It is great to be here. I've met some of you already. I worked with you before. It's great to meet you tonight, and I look forward to it. It's been a great week so far. I've been here for 5 days.
Good.
And I look forward to doing a really good job for you guys.
I know the staff is, from conversations, they're looking forward to you, have been looking forward to you being on the ground and
Yes.
get things really going. So welcome back.
Thank you very much.
We have a cake in the next room.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I already ate.
It's gone.
All right.
Joe's gonna jump out of it.
And then just a communication point, we have in our documents the best management plan for North Andover pertinent to this year. At the last meeting, we had the vector management plan, which is a much more broad-based document in terms of mosquitoes and risk and various matters pertinent to, again, the mosquito vector. Last time we talked a little bit about ticks, and we're, again, Joe's starting to see more and more things going on in terms of tick management. I think there's actually been something going on at the legislative level looking at starting to put some monies to that direction. But we have here the best management plan that talks about plans, both preemptive and surveillance and active management that they have put before us. So I don't think this is really anything we have to discuss other than accept it. The one thing we did ask the director the last time to put in was that if there is a recommendation for local treatment because of positive findings, given that in the past that always seemed to happen on Friday afternoon, for several years we had put it into effect that if there's a notice that comes in on a short-term basis and they suggest it would be good to do a quick treatment, that communication happens through the staff to the chair, who usually will approve it and communicate quickly to the board members so that we don't have to have a specific called board meeting to vote for that. And we've used that phrasing several years in the past. That's not put in here in the past, but maybe we could take that as part of the statement that's highlighted here, that adult deciding with approval from the Board of Health will be provided as follows. So I think if we're okay with that, we'll just accept that as what we stated we'd like to do last month.
Sounds great.
Okay.
I think I had a long conversation with a resident the other day, Peter Breen, who does a lot of business in town, and he's very concerned about the mosquitoes this year, Zika virus, and obviously the ticks. That's another whole issue itself right there. But I'm looking forward to working with mosquito control. They have a new director up here. Her name is Mary Duggan. I have not met her yet personally, but I've talked to her on the phone a few times, and we've emailed back and forth on various occasions. So I will keep you up to date on anything that they send our way.
She was here last month, as a matter of fact.
Oh, she was?
She did.
Okay.
Mhm.
They did a presentation for the board.
That's right.
Yeah.
So-
I have a question. I put it on my desk. So a resident called, and she lives across the street from conservation land, and she says it's stagnant water, and it's just, she wants to get that sprayed. Can you get something sprayed if you don't own that land?
What they do is they do a truck bed-based spraying, so they do it from the road, and it's an aerosolized
Right.
adulticide. that
But you know
kills
how like,
mosquitoes.
well, we have the extra, like, you can, for residents that want
Oh,
to.
purchase it themselves?
Yeah.
They would probably have to have that approved
Do
by
you
the
know what I
town,
mean?
I'd imagine.
So
Whoever
we
owns
have.
the land, and if
So
it's
if it's
town land,
conservation land.
conservation, they have to go through the conservation commission.
Yeah,
to do that.
because you know how they can call and
Yeah.
and request for for the town to spray their land?
Mhm.
Well, so that's sort of what this woman is requesting, but she doesn't own it.
But the spraying that she's requesting would be the truck-based spraying, so it's from the road and it's from a public way, and it's through the state, so I think that's what she's referring to, and if that's
So
that's the case.
there's another group, it's the
Then-
mosquito squad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so our town will do the truck-based spraying and do all the parks and things like that. Then if you want to hire someone to come in and do your land, it's your land.
Oh, you have to hire them?
Yeah, you'd have to hire them.
Okay, I thought they.
So that's the
So-
mosquito squad, that's a private company.
That's separate from what we do.
Correct.
Right.
But there are companies that will come
Right.
out and do it, but it's not her property.
Right.
So she'd probably have to speak to conservation about it.
That's what I thought. So that's on your desk.
Okay.
Now, we can.
In the past, when we've approved either neighborhood or street sprayings, we've looked for approval from that property owners. We couldn't say, Ed asked me to spray a street and
Yeah.
just drive the truck up and down and spray his whole street. We
Right.
looked for some kind of a consensus from a neighborhood that people are okay with it, because so there may be people who are silently not wanting to do it, and unless we go to them and ask, we don't
They could opt out.
we don't actively go and treat on a nuisance basis,
Right.
So
by
we do a
request,
whole
so-
neighborhood.
Right.
But people had the right to opt out.
Right.
So, and they could call us and opt out if they didn't want their property done.
Right.
It didn't affect anybody else's. The spraying still went on for all the other homes, but their house, they'd stopped spraying at it. So,
So this is.
But the
this is
area
the
she
opposite
wanted
of.
to treat
Yeah.
is town-owned land as a conservation, or we don't know, or,
I think it's town owned.
I mean, if conservation would approve, then we could talk to the district, but we can't decide that on behalf of conservation.
right.
Right, that's sort of what I thought. But it's on Brian's desk, 'cause he's the boss.
Okay,
Oh,
thanks.
Well, we also have this, there is a form any resident in North Andover can fill out, fax it in, whatever it might be, requesting to spray at their property, or their property and their neighbors,
Okay.
get a hold, and that's, we've already approved that.
Okay, so we
So
have
if you
that
get that
form.
form, that's already been voted on.
Okay, so as it worked out in the past, when those forms come in, or requests come into our office, I call mosquito control and say, these requests have come through, or does it come before you guys?
We don't do it anymore, actually, do we? Do we still
Yes.
let people opt
Yeah.
out?
No.
Opt out, yes, we have to.
He's talking about
Right.
request for
Opting
spraying.
in.
Oh.
Request for spraying.
Opting in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we.
Opting out is up through March 1st thing. That's
Right.
state, that's
Yes.
general law.
Yep.
But if someone, on a nuisance basis, would like to request spraying in a street, a neighborhood, we have a form for that we've
Okay.
used.
Yes.
Right.
That you're referencing, so.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
And that's already been voted on.
Lisa can probably get that for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've used that for 2 years.
Is that done by a special company?
No,
That's
same,
Northeast Mosquito Control.
Northeast Mosquito Control
Okay.
District, yeah.
So
But
they-
someone would have to speak to.
But they
to-
don't, so they don't pay for it?
No, we're already in the mosquito coalition, so it's already paid for.
I'm
So,
confused.
she's confused.
That's
I
our-
understand why you're
That's our
confused.
property, though.
Two groups, state,
If it's conservation, private, conservation land.
Right.
Conservation owns it.
Right.
If it's town-owned property, town owns it. But conservation's a little bit different than town-owned, I would think, don't you think? So I think that you would have to get permission from the Conservation Department and the
But-
board to be
but,
able to do that.
But you're saying if somebody wants their area sprayed, like a
Our
private,
home.
our
Their
home.
home.
Or yours and your neighbor, we
Right.
already, there is a form for that. and-
Yeah.
Right, but then, do they get charged for that?
No.
No.
If it's a
No.
neighborhood spraying, but if
So
you
what
want...
Neighborhood spraying, so there is a mosquito squad,
Right.
or there are companies, and you'll see the
But that's
signs
not
on
who
people's...
we're talking about now.
That's not who we're talking about.
But, so why would somebody?
Someone would come in to have their backyard done.
Right, but why
So-
would they pay for that if they could get it done for free?
Because they're only doing the
Because they're only
road.
doing the streets.
Yeah, they're just doing the street. They don't go behind your house.
They don't go on your
and do
property.
or-
Yeah, you and I can talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah, I'm just, okay.
They won't come in and fog your yard for a party on...
Right, but they'll
Yeah.
they'll go by your street.
Yes.
They'll do your neighborhood.
Correct.
Okay, they'll go down the
Yes.
street.
But they
Okay.
also won't do
spraying.
it on request, like, I'm having something
Okay.
tomorrow night, can you come?
Right,
Right,
okay,
exactly.
I understand.
The
And they
opt-out,
can do it several times in a year, in a season as well.
the
So,
opt-out
but you pay for it.
list,
Yeah.
does each community have a copy of
Yes.
of that for the
You can
residents?
opt out-
They have the
you can
right to
opt
do
out
it.
through the town clerk. There's
And we
the-
have it on our website, we
Yeah.
have it on cable TV, at that time when you have a deadline to opt out. So it's advertised.
Yeah, but each community has a list of those residents who have opted out.
Well, some residents, I mean, some
We-
towns don't even spray, like Lawrence isn't
The
even
town
in the
clerk,
mosquito
they're not in
control.
this,
Yeah.
But people that submit the opt-out form.
The town clerk has it.
And
Okay.
mosquito control also
Okay.
has
Yeah.
it.
And they'll receive it, and they know
Okay.
exactly who
Correct.
to
Yeah,
stop
this
in
is
front
dictated
of.
by Mass General Law.
Understand.
Which says that
Yeah.
it's actually a certified letter goes to the town clerk's office.
Okay.
In the past, again, we sort of put that into clear effect once we learned it. For 2 or 3 years, Ms. Bradshaw's office keeps that list, but then she transmits that to mosquito control.
Right.
But I'm sure she keeps that list.
Yes.
In her office.
She is the master list. She keeps the forms, I believe. Mosquito control has all the addresses they can't spray at. So when they go to do a townwide spraying, if Triple E or West Nile virus is found, they know where they're not going to spray already. So it's kind of set up ahead of time. The deadline's March 1st.
And inevitably, people miss the deadline and then,
No, it's...
you know,
Yeah.
I know,
the
it's
way
what it is, yeah.
Talking about mosquitoes, I was going to give an update on a little on the Zika virus. There's not a big difference in 1 month, 30 days in studying a virus. There still has not been any active cases in the United States. It's all been travel-related infections. There's more out now on the pregnancy aspect. And this is from WHO and the CDC. There's also a CDC Zika site, which is really good. They update it. It's up to date by 4 days. It's 4 days old now.
Yeah.
They keep updating it. And the newest thing now is a stronger warning with women who are pregnant and women who want to become pregnant but want to travel to U.S. territories, Brazil, South Africa, wherever they might be going in that part of the world. Much stronger warning. And also, there's more research dollars coming in because they're finding there's more neurological effects from the Zika infection that they're studying. But again, 30 days, you don't get a lot of new information in that regard. But the website's great. It has, now it covers how people working outside can protect themselves. If they use a certain concentrate of DEET, 5% or 10%, they might get an hour and a half or 2 hours worth of protection. If they use 30%, that's really the minimum, they might get 4 to 5 hours of protection. You put it on your clothing. So there's new information that's going up on the website. I find it very interesting. It's out there. They consider it very dangerous, but there's no active cases here. It's all travel related coming into the States. But I've been kind of reading and watching it, but even in the New England Journal of Medicine, there's nothing really new yet. Just various neurological.
They're putting in billions of dollars into research
Yeah.
Right.
and studying it and looking at the entire thing as a virus. It's new. It's starting to spread a little bit. It has some serious health effects. So I think it's definitely getting the publicity that it needs. And I think the CD put in $50 billion this year, I think is what they earmarked for it. So that's good. And I'm also definitely keeping up on it as well. And I will let you guys know if I hear anything that comes out that's new.
I'd read recently that it's one of the major concerns in Puerto Rico right now. And they are U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico, and they do travel.
Yeah.
the States. They moved to the States.
Exactly.
So,
So all the Caribbean islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican, Cuba, all along all of the tropical areas and along the equator is where it's obviously most prevalent.
Yeah, one of the problems also with the Zika infection is that most people don't get sick. They may have the symptomology, but they don't get severely ill. But one of the problems I see is that it can be transmitted sexually. And that's way beyond what anybody would have thought. So
Right. Yeah.
I think this is a big deal.
Definitely.
And yeah, certainly easier to spread.
Yeah.
Right.
Mosquitoes.
God love
Fresh.
That's it.
Very good. Anything else?
No, sir?
Then a motion adjourn is always in order.
I move to adjourn this meeting of the Board of Health, effective immediately.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.